There are many leather conditioners on the market, and a few factors that lead to some being referenced as better than others. We'll share those factors next, along with recommendations for the best leather conditioners. It's important to remember too that when considering the best, context is key. There are generally no all or nothing recommendations, and it will be highly context dependent on need and personal preference. The first factor we look for are quality ingredients. We look for conditioners that have gentle, natural ingredients. The goal here is to safely restore moisture into the fibers. When we look closely at leather, the whole point of conditioning is to get those oils and fats back in here to give flexibility, resilience, and strength. So whatever we put in here, we want to make sure it's good because it's going to be in here, sometimes forever. So while some popular conditioners have petroleum-based oils and synthetic chemical compounds, most natural ones are usually recommended, especially when it comes to the fats, the oils, and whatever is in them, because that's what's going to end up in your leather. The second factor we look at is that it is pH balanced. So a huge thing in leather care is that pH of the items that we use are close to the leather or neutral. So leather, like most substances, has a pH value. And when substances of different pH come into contact, they work to neutralize one another and come into balance. So if one is higher and one is lower, they're going to work to come into that balance. And when that happens, it releases generally salts and water, both of which can harm, you guessed it, leather. So if something has a pH that's right at about the same pH as your leather, there's not going to be much of a reaction. Or if it's neutral at around a pH of 7, similarly, there won't be much of a reaction. But if you get much higher on the pH scale or much lower, the reaction is going to exponentially, literally, increase or decrease. Think of it like that classic baking soda and vinegar volcano. That is the exact thing happening. That's a very similar reaction as to what is happening in here. It's going to look a little bit different, though functionally speaking, it's relatively similar. The next thing we look for is a gentle conditioner, primarily because we want to add things without causing damage. So without creating a sticky film, without clogging the leather pores, and leaving it to breathe nicely. And now the time you've been waiting for. What are some great conditioners? And you probably guessed, but what you've seen so far, we have Leather Honey and Chamberlain's Leather Milk. So we're going to look at each one more closely, show an example applying it so you can see exactly before and after what it looks like and what it does. First up is Leather Honey. So this conditioner is a very gentle, pH balanced product made from natural ingredients. It works well for most leather types. Overall, it offers a lot of benefits for a conditioning product with a natural formula and decades of pretty happy customers. And next, we have Chamberlain's Leather Milk. So this is a healing balm. It's a deep leather conditioner and healing balm with cosmetic grade adhesives, oils, and waxes. So the key ingredients are going to include water, a proprietary blend of oils and nutrients, and these include nut extracts and oils. It claims to contain no saddle soaps, solvents, or synthetic chemicals. So enough with the talk, let's see them in action. First up, Leather Honey. What we're going to do is we have these 3 samples here. We're going to take one, keep it as our basic to compare it to, and then we're going to have one each for our examples. Here's our Leather Honey one. We'll put it down there. For this example, I'm going to use a cotton cloth to apply it. You can use that or any other application mechanism that is generally soft and lint-free. You want it soft so it doesn't scratch your leather surface, and lint-free so it doesn't leave a lot of residue in the very conditioner that you are applying to it. So we just open this up, put a little bit on our cloth here, and then important is you kind of see it going a little bit everywhere. And if we were to put that right down on our leather, it's going to be concentrated in one area. So typically, I'll just kind of dab this down a little bit so it spreads it out a tiny bit, and then we'll go and apply it. Also keep in mind, any leather to be conditioned should usually be cleaned first, and that way you have, and of course allow it to dry and things like that. And that way you have a clean basis on which to then cover it with conditioner that will then seep into those fibers. So we just kind of put this on. Looks like I need a little more already. I already seeped into this cloth. But there it is, it's in action. It's already seeping. All right, here we go. So we'll kind of just apply it. I like to do, little circles. And what I'll do is I'll work in smaller areas to make sure I get a pretty consistent application in that area. And then once I have them all covered pretty well, I'll go over at the end and do this kind of like an overview over everything to make sure it's blended well. Because if there's more conditioner in one area than another, it's likely going to darken that more. Since most conditioners do darken leather, if there's a whole lot clumped up in one area, once it dries, that may be a little bit darker than your other areas, which is probably not desirable. Unless it is, in which case, then you're all set. All right, kind of getting that in there. And now we're going to do our final one over everything. Just kind of blend this in. And then we'll just do big circles over that. All right. Awesome. So there we have our conditioner applied, clearly where I was holding it with my finger there. So there's not as much there, but there we look. And if we take this and we compare it to the original, you can see when it's initially applied, it's a lot darker. So let's check it out once it's been dried longer. So here's a sample. That is dry. It's been dried over 24 hours, and we can see here our starting, our right after applying, and our dried. These two are probably going to be the most key to look at, the before and the after. And the after, you can see, is just slightly darker. So it's pretty good. Adds in the conditioning without darkening this piece of leather too much. Different leathers will respond differently, which is why they always recommend testing to make sure that you like the result prior to doing it to the whole piece. All right, next up is our Chamberlain's leather milk. So here, if we check this out, it's kind of like a balm formula. A little bit of a paste look and feel to it. And so what we'll do is we'll take our foil here, put that down. Going to put our sample right there. And then we're going to use our soft cotton cloth again. Different one obviously this time. We don't want to blend our conditioners. Unless you do, in which case you do you. So here, we'll take a little bit and we'll essentially just rub a little bit in a little circle to get it into that cloth nice and even. We don't want to take a big lop and then have to spread it out on our piece. It's better to spread it out on your cloth, and then it'll do a nice even application on your piece. And again, we just want to be aware of not putting too much concentrated in any one area. And just do a nice even coat across the surface. You could take your time to do this. You could put on as much or as little as you feel is best for your product and your needs. We'll kind of put this in here. And what's really good are the natural ingredients. That's going to be nice. But even then, make sure that you like what those natural ingredients are, because just because it's natural doesn't necessarily mean you want it in your leather. So do your due diligence, read some stuff, and decide if, that's right for you. Now we'll do that one final one over everything. And we just kind of blend it all in. Now this is going to have obviously a light point where I was holding it. So it will demonstrate what we're looking for. So here is the Chamberlain's leather milk applied. And you can see, here's how we started. Here's how it looks applied. But the big verdict is, what does it look like when it's dry? So here it is after being dry for over 24 hours. We've got our starting point, our just applied, and our dried version. So these, of course, are going to be your keys to look at in terms of color change. There isn't a whole lot of color change, which is really nice. Most conditioners will darken it just a little bit, but it's not too much. So overall, looking pretty good. So let's line up our two options here. This will be our starting point for both. We already have our leather honey that's drying a little bit. And on the bottom is going to be our Chamberlains. So overall, two great conditioners, gentle, natural ingredients, and can be some excellent choices if they work for you. And there you have it. Until next time.